Welcome to the Real View podcast, where Ohio Realtors connect you to innovators and influencers, keeping you with the real view of real estate. Whether you're a broker, agent, first-time homebuyer, industry leader, or just happen to stumble upon our podcast today, you can expect to hear tips, tools, tricks, interesting information, and so much more from the experts in Ohio's real estate game. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Real View podcast. I am your host, Allison Wiley. Joining me today, our special guest for the day is Brian Boero. He is co-founder at 1000 Watts. He has joined us on the Real View before, so we always love having repeat guests on. Brian, welcome onto the show. We're so happy to have you.
Allison, thank you for having me back. I'm honored to be a repeat visitor. It means I didn't alienate your audience the first time. So thank you for having me back.
No, of course not. And you are no stranger to Ohio Realtors and to our audience here. So we love any chance we get to be able to hear from you and your perspective on the industry and everything that's going on. You know, you have such a unique view into that. So I'm excited to be able to hear from you and what you're seeing and hearing from around the industry. And we got so much to talk about with just everything that's been going on in the industry this past year with clear cooperation. We know we've been seeing a lot of headlines about that. That's been making some waves. You've been making waves at 1000 Watts. So we're going to dive all into that. But before we do, I would like to hear a little bit more about you. Could you tell us about yourself and how you got started in the industry?
I have been around the real estate industry for 28 years now, which is hard to believe, but 28 years. And I've never sold real estate. I've never run a real estate brokerage, but I've been around this business in various ways in media, marketing, technology, and love it because it's so meaningful what realtors do. And I never get bored in this space. My company is 1000 Watt. I co-founded that with a guy named Mark Davison in 2007. And we are a creative and strategy firm that just focuses on real estate. So we help brokers, teams, mortgage companies, prop tech companies, title companies, some home builders sort of figure out what their brand is and how to articulate it out there in the world to grow their business and strengthen their brand.
Yeah, and you do just amazing work at 1000 Watt, and I think the insights that you all are able to produce there are so fascinating. And, you know, I belong to 1000 Watt, and I'm on in my membership frequently, always looking at the latest research and consumer insights you're given. And I mean, it's just fascinating stuff. Talk to us a little bit about some of the work you guys do there, the research that you give with consumers. I mean, that stuff is so valuable, I think, to our industry, especially to the brands you mentioned that you work with. Talk to us about that, kind of your approach and your methodology when you're dealing with some of that.
I didn't mention, in addition to all the client work that we do, we have a membership program. And basically that is really, it functions as a very important foundational pit of intelligence for our members. And in essence, the membership program is based on the belief that the first thing that you need to do and the thing that you always need to do is to listen closely to your customer. You know, that's something that we all nod our head and say, yeah, that's a good idea, of course, but oftentimes does not happen. So what we do, and we've done this now for 4 or 5 years, is we methodically listen to consumers, home buyers, sellers, aspiring home buyers, people who are thinking about selling, and we get inside their heads. And we also do this from time to time with realtors, with practitioners, and really try to understand motivations and what's going on with them right away. And that intelligence helps us guide our members through the marketplace and helps us formulate ideas that we then share with our members. So, you know, that's really what the membership program is about. And, you know, I'm glad to hear that you find value in it, but it's based on that foundational belief that you really need to consistently and methodically pay attention to what's going on with your customer, particularly in times like this, where, you know, there's lots of change in the industry. There's a sluggish kind of market environment that has persisted now for 3 years, and it's just an important thing to do. And we help our members do that.
Yeah, you guys do such a great job at that. And it is so important. And that's something that I think that, not everyone takes the time to do, especially because, when we get as members, as realtors, you get into that sell mode, that list mode, that buyer mode. I need to be focusing on my clients at all times. And it's so important, as you mentioned, kind of during the more sluggish times, or if there is down times, right? That this is some of the work that you could be doing, that you could be investing in yourself and investing in your business in, and being able to be aware of what that public perception is out there, because I think it's so important, and that helps you become a better realtor and helps you be able to serve your clients. If you kind of are aware of what's out there, what the consumers are feeling, I think it's
Yeah,
it's such valuable information.
absolutely, Allison. And I'll tell you, because we talk with realtors all across the United States, right? And so one of the things that we hear all the time is, well, I don't know what to do with my marketing, right?
Mhm.
Because we now need to be in so many places. Well, I need to be doing Instagram Reels and TikTok and YouTube and my website and my email marketing, and it's all overwhelming, and I don't know what to say, and I don't know what to do, and it's tough. It's almost paralyzing. What our belief is that if you listen to your customer and you really pay attention, they will tell you what your marketing should be.
Mhm.
Listen, and they will tell you what your marketing should be.
Yep.
And I'll give you an example of that. So we just recently released a piece of research on recent home sellers.
Mhm.
And there's other research out there on selling, but we wanted to get at the emotional texture of what home sellers go through and where they get stressed and what they worry about, and all of that type of stuff. And we uncovered some really interesting insights along the way, and things that we didn't necessarily expect, but dictate what exactly we should be doing in terms of marketing. So, one of the things that came up, Allison, was we found that most people find it very stressful to interview a realtor to sell their house, right? Some people don't even do an interview, they take a referral. However, that happens a lot. But for people who are out there looking for professional help, they told us everyone looks the same and we don't really know what to look for.
Mm,
Okay. So if prospective sellers are saying, you all look the same and we don't really know what to look for,
yeah.
then your marketing should be telling people what to look for and showing people how you are different from the other 100 or 1,000 or 10,000 practitioners in your area. So it's really pretty straightforward stuff.
Yeah, and that's just great. I mean, we should be showing people what they want, right? If they're saying, you're finding that they're saying, we don't know what we want, we don't know how to pick, it's too much, we don't even know where to begin with this. That's such a great opportunity for us to be able to tell them what they want, and tell them, you want a realtor that is XYZ. You want someone who's in your
Right.
corner, you want an expert, you want someone who has been, buying and selling homes in this area for however many years. That is
Yeah.
just a great opportunity to be able to showcase some of
Yeah,
that, and be able to
for
provide
sure.
those consumers with what they don't even know that they want. I think that's a huge opportunity for us.
Yep, absolutely.
Have you seen like consumer perception change since everything we went through with the lawsuits and the DOJ? I mean, when that happened last year, right? And we're almost at the year mark. So when those changes went into effect, which is crazy because it still feels like it happened last night. But
Yeah.
it's been almost a year now. Did it make such a big impact and deal to consumers as maybe we thought it would be? Or when this news first broke, we were kind of in that adjustment phase and we had to, maybe switch up the way we were doing things. Has it made a real difference with the people that we're working with every day?
Short answer is no,
Yeah.
but I'll give you a little bit of color on that. So
Yeah.
during the lawsuit, the verdict in late 2023, and then all through 2024 during the settlement and all those changes, we were tracking consumer sentiment about realtors and things around fees and everything. Sometimes we'll talk about things that others with consumers that others kind of shy away from, right?
Yeah.
So we asked very specific questions about, do you think realtors are overpaid? Do you like realtors? Blah, 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 blah. And what we found was after the jury verdict and all the way up until the settlement was approved and last summer and fall, we had to go through all those changes. People weren't really paying attention, even though there was some big media coverage around that. And it was just kind of like, okay, whatever. A surprising number of people hadn't even heard of these changes. When the settlement hit, then awareness went up.
Mm-hmm.
And there were lots of stories in the media about the settlement, and sentiment around realtors actually took a hit. So more people at that point reported having an unfavorable impression of realtors at that point. However, that was, late last summer, early fall. Since that time, we've kind of reverted back to historic sentiment around the realtor community. And it's sort of, folks have moved on,
Yeah.
which is not unpredictable.
Yeah.
But it was, very hard to go through. And I know you know that, Allison, where you sit, and for your members to go through. But at the end of the day, people come and go in terms of real estate awareness. They do this thing, once or twice or three times or four times in their lives. And, we sort of exit real estate mind space for years and years and years, become acutely involved in real estate for a period of weeks or months, and then forget about it for another decade or two.
Yep. And that, I think it's so unique, like in our industry, that, we're not dealing with our client. Our clients might not need us on an everyday basis, right? And it is more cyclical in nature. And I think that's really unique, to our industry, is that we are dealing with them, the life cycle of our clients. We're hoping that they're coming back to us, every couple of years. And you're right, it's not top of mind for every person, which I think, as you mentioned, is so hard for us who are living and breathing it every day. That not everyone is in this world and so focused on it, like we may be sometimes. Has there been a big surprise or something that you found that has really, made you pause and say, that's really interesting, in some of the research that you've done in the past year or so? What's been kind of your biggest surprise as you've dealt through some of that?
I don't know if it's a surprise, but the biggest opportunity really that just surfaces over and over again. And again, this is particularly true of this recent research we just did with people that sort of hold a home in the last 5 years, is the profound ignorance that consumers have around what a good realtor does.
Mm.
And people just don't know what to look for. They don't know the things that a great practitioner does when they help them sell or buy a home. And that ignorance undermines value, because how are you supposed to appreciate or value or be willing to pay for something that you don't even really understand?
Yeah.
And that just turns up again and again when people tell us that, well, I find looking for a realtor in the context of home sale stressful because I have no idea what to look for. Well, that's a terrible miss.
Mm-hmm.
How is it that we have somehow not helped people make that decision? And I think part of the answer, Allison, is that, and you alluded to this just a minute ago, is that most pros are busy and they do what they do. They have a process, and hopefully they're really good at it.
Mm-hmm.
And they take that for granted. And they shouldn't take it for granted. They should document it, write it down, and explain in their marketing what it is they do and how they do it, because the consumers out there really have no idea. They just, all realtors look the same. There's lots of them, and I don't know how to tell the difference.
Yeah.
So we need to tell people how we do what we do if they're going to be able to choose us or feel like they are willing to pay us.
It's a huge opportunity. I think that's a really great thing about this is like the power is in our hands. The ball is in our court with this. We can be communicating directly, with them and letting them know, the value that we bring. So that value messaging is still broken, huh? We still got more work to do on that, it sounds
Oh,
like.
yeah. Yes, we do. And, last year was the year when everybody said, it's time to show our value,
Yep.
particularly on the buy side, given the changes, right? It's time to show our value. And, look, the changes did force some conversations to happen up front, which was good because having that conversation is an opportunity to talk about your value. But just generally speaking, on the buy side, the sell side, across the industry, we still have a long, long way to go in terms of explaining to the world, this is what we do to get you a good outcome. Here's how we do it. And therefore, that's why I'm worth what I'm asking you to pay me.
Yeah. And that's why you don't want to do this alone. That's why you need
Yeah.
me to help you when you're making the biggest purchase,
Yes.
that you're probably going to make in your life.
Yes.
Yeah, no, that absolutely makes sense. I want to switch gears a little bit to CCP, right? Clear
Yeah.
Cooperation Policy, CCP. Let's just start with the basics. Tell us what CCP is and kind of the recent conversations, controversies, if you want to use that word, that's been surrounding it.
This is a dispute that has consumed the industry at a high level, and lots of fighting and arguing, and just seems to go on and on and on. But the reality, in the simplest possible way to think about this, it's about whether we think that the existing system of sharing listings and competitors working together is the best way to run a housing market or not.
Mm-hmm.
So, Clear Cooperation basically said that after, 24 hours of public marketing, a listing had to go in the MLS, right? It mandated that. And there are brokers and agents who think that's a great idea because it preserves the structural integrity of the multiple listing service. It minimizes the occurrence of private or pocket listings to only those situations where they're really, really merited. And there are others who vociferously object to this, and that a seller and their agent ought to be able to decide how to promote their listing how they want, wherever they want it, and should not be forced to place it within the MLS. If the seller wants to market it for months and months and months off the MLS, that should be their right and their choice. And this argument, it just keeps intensifying. And your listeners probably read all about the Zillow ban and the Compass lawsuit against Zillow. And we'll see how it all resolves, but it's consumed the industry. But it's really fundamentally about what do we think is the best way to run a housing market in 2025 and beyond?
And that's what is so fascinating about, both sides of this argument, right? Because I think you can make a case. And I think that's why maybe this is so, such a hot topic because people have such strong opinions on it, whether you're on one side or the other. But really, like, you can make a case for both sides of this. And I think that makes it really interesting and really, fascinating is that I can see both sides of it. Is that kind of how you perceive it too? Or from your vantage point, kind of how do you see it? Is there one way that's right, one way that's wrong? What's your perspective on it and on both sides who are trying to make their case?
Well, yes, there are seemingly strong arguments on both sides here, and we see them over and over again. In fact, I think many of your listeners are probably fatigued from hearing the arguments on both sides of this.
Yeah.
Which, depending on the type of mood you're in or where you sit, may hit you as valid or not valid. The arguments are out there.
Yeah.
I have a personal opinion on this, and I've stated this over and over again publicly. Look, we've always had the ability to market a listing privately. Clear Cooperation explicitly provided a loophole through office exclusives to let that practice continue. You can put a listing in the MLS in almost all MLS systems and hit no internet so that it's just available to members of the MLS and not out there publicly. The issue here is, in my view, if we in the real estate industry and me personally, think that home ownership is a dream to which most people still aspire, that owning a home is one of the most important, powerful things that people can do for their financial and sort of psychological health. It's an engine of growth. It's an engine of well-being. I think we all believe that in the real estate industry. Then we ought to do as an industry everything we can do to make home ownership attainable to as many people as possible. And so, in my view, pulling more listings out of view and putting them back here in the shadows is not a way to achieve that end.
Mhm.
So that's my personal belief. I have many friends in the industry, brokers, agents, who disagree with me. So, there it goes. It's really a matter for the courts at this point, significantly. So we'll see how it shakes out.
Yeah, gonna be something to absolutely keep our eye on. A lot of strong opinions, a lot of, ability to kind of see both sides of that, see where, it is so beneficial. And that's what makes our system in America, unlike some of the other housing industries across the world, is that we do have this open, free enterprise system. We are having this availability for as many eyeballs as we can possibly get to see these properties and not just keep them, for select individuals to see. So I do think, there is absolutely its benefits, and we know other people, see the other side of it as well. So absolutely going to be something to keep an eye on. I don't think it's going to be, going away anytime soon.
No, I don't think the argument and the fight is going to be over for a while.
Yeah, I think so too. For people who are, as you mentioned, some fatigue around it, or maybe feeling we have to talk about this again. I think buckle up, because yeah, we're probably going to be discussing this
For
still for
sure.
a while. What other trends are you kind of seeing around the industry that we should think about as we head now into the second half of the year? Anything that we should kind of flag as top of the mind? What are you keeping your eye out for? Talk to us about kind of what you're seeing coming down the pipeline for the second half of the year.
Well, I think the thing that's, first and foremost, as it almost always is the market. And, in most places, the market is kind of in this weird sort of like standoff stasis. It's like sluggish. It's
Mhm.
very, very sluggish. And I think, look, we have to assume that's probably going to stay that way for a while. We've been waiting for 3 years now for rates to come down, for the market to, light up. We're finally getting some more inventory in most places in the country, but now demand's not there. Like we just, I think, have become used to this sluggish reality. And, whether we get a rate cut in the second half of the year or we don't, I mean, who knows? I
Yeah.
certainly don't know.
Yeah.
But I think we have to assume going forward that we're going to continue to live in this industry and market environment of scarcity, which means we're probably going to have, another year of around 4 million existing home sales. And we still got lots of people chasing that business. There's lots of mouths to feed in this industry and not enough food. So I think we just have to assume that's going to continue.
Yeah.
Hope for the best, but plan for a continuation of, this sluggishness and scarcity. And, really, from my perspective as a marketer, I tend to believe everything is marketing, Allison. I know
It
that's not
is. Hey, I'm a
always
marketer too.
true.
We're on the same page.
Yeah.
I love talking to marketers, and when I have people who have the marketing, comms and marketing background, it's like we just get
Yeah.
each other.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you're a sympathetic ear, but look, if there's, a depressed number of home sales again this year, and there are still lots and lots and lots of realtors chasing those home sales. Well, how do you make sure you get enough of that pie? How do you make sure that you sustain yourself and grow in a time like this? You have to differentiate and tell a story that's compelling. Again, people don't know how to choose a realtor, and they think all realtors are the same. If you want to get your share of a diminished pie, you have to stand out and you have to tell a strong story that's differentiated and communicates your unique value. That's really the only thing to do here.
And that's really, and when we look in the next 3 years, or as we head into, another sluggish market, or where we don't see any crazy movement, where we still have those, 6-7% interest rates, where we're not seeing, that huge move from the sidelines from buyers and sellers. That's really what's going to separate these top agents. You want to survive in this market that's kind of meh. That's how you do it, by communicating your value, finding what makes you unique and different, and being able to share that with the consumer and tell them, like, hey, this is what you want and I'm going to give it to you. I think that's a huge opportunity that all agents have, and that we should feel positive and optimistic about.
Yeah.
So what is next for you, Brian? What's next for 1000 Watt? You've shared some amazing stuff today on what you guys are working on, the research you're doing, what you're bringing to our real estate industry. What do you have your eyes set on? What can we expect from you guys? Tell us a little bit about what the future holds.
Sure. So we have recently sort of revamped and relaunched our membership program, and we're sort of doubling down on the ideation component of this. So we are going to continue to do the research, but more and more what we're going to be focusing on is research-driven ideas and strategies that our members can deploy right now. Because, as I just said, it's time to go out there and tell a stronger story, a more differentiated story. And so what we really want to do is deliver more and more ideas to our members that are rooted in research, that they can go and run with in their market. So we're going to do more of that. We're doing an event next year in June in Denver called Signal, which is focused on all this cool brand and marketing stuff. And we're continuing to serve clients who are taking this moment in time when, there's a lot of weirdness in the economy right now. The market's, still sluggish. They're taking the opportunity right now to go out and build share, to build market share. So that keeps us busy, Allison.
Oh, for sure. And talking to people like me and continuing to share, your wealth of knowledge with our realtor community. I know we appreciate you so much, and the value and resource that you bring to us, to me personally, and to Ohio Realtors. We appreciate you and the work that you do. So valuable and so important. And, as I said, if we are in this sluggish market as we're finding ourselves in, if business is a little bit slower, now is the time to be putting energy and effort into learning some of this, into reworking our brand, and to really being able to make sure that we are going to create something special for ourselves and our clients, and being able to communicate that. So important. So Brian, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me today, for all the work that you do. It's always a great time being able to talk to you.
Thank you, Allison. I really appreciate that. And I appreciate you as a fellow marketer.
Of course. Yes. Me too. And to all of our listeners, thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll be back with you next week. Talk to you then.
Thank you for listening to The Real View. That wraps up today's episode. You can keep up with the latest on the podcast at ohiorealtors.org/therealview and on Apple or Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Have questions, comments, or suggestions? We want to hear from you. Email us at podcast@ohiorealtors.org. We'll see you next time.